Manish Jaiswal, CEO, SME, Magma Fincorp. Mr. Jaiswal, thanks so much for taking out time for us. You interact with a lot of these MSME players, how they work and what essentially is happening. Can you just tell us what is the sort of shock that they have seen? What sort of measures could be considered, so that their loans don't convert into MPA or, essentially they find it difficult to succeed from here on in the near term?
So clearly till March 19th, the economy was in a different trajectory. I'll first talk of our own experience. Our disbursals and collections were tracking for this year at its best. And in the current situation, it is only fair that when the economic activity has virtually come to a halt, but for the essential services, it is under the current circumstances, the working capital, if the pain continues for a longer time, obviously will move into consumption capital. Typically, MSMEs have a net working capital credit of 60 to 90 days of their turnover. So it actually builds over a period of time. The destruction to working capital of MSEs has to be restored. Government had taken some measures in the past. It only needs to be bolstered. For example, in the government's MSE subvention scheme of 2%, almost 25% of our borrowers have been able to avail of 2% interest rate subvention. But under the current conditions, the gamut has to be expanded very significantly. And I do believe that government would do something phenomenally well in terms of either giving a moratorium or a break from payment or back-ending the payment, and obviously into asset classification. The backbone of economy is towards MSEs, and obviously I don't think we'd like to play around with that.
When we just talk about earlier times when MSMEs have faced issues, maybe you could compare it to demonetization. Is this time around the damage much higher because even exports are shut, people are not allowed to move, so the damage is much higher than compared to those 15-20 days of demonetization that was seen earlier?
I would say early days to really be speculative and compare, but clearly with Demon behind us, it was a temporary phenomenon, Demon, and largely most of the SMEs we cater to are formal SMEs, and we honestly did not feel the impact of Demon, or for that matter even GST, on formally established MSEs who were largely moving towards formal economy structure. And I do believe a lot of needle has significantly moved post-Demon and GST towards formalization of economy. In this lockout, obviously when the contagion play at its peak, and especially in the B2C segment, when consumers are completely shut and they can't move out and any form of mobility restriction is not permissible, I think it will be a significantly higher cash flow constraint for MSEs, and it will need a very different level of thinking. I think this is the first time ever it's happening, this kind of a pandemic in this century at least. So I think measures of past which have been implemented will need a very significant and different level of play to be able to tackle these kind of issues.
Okay. So obviously disbursals, like you mentioned, may have seen a bit of a hit. What about recoveries? Is asset quality going to be a problem? I mean, how do you see a trend? Do you also do your collections or your recoveries in the first of every month or the first week of every month? How would it work?
Till 19th of March, we were ahead on our collection efficiency by about 1%, near to 1% for MSEs. And almost all of our MSEs, they pay digitally or through paper. There are far and few MSEs who get delinquent, they pay on cash. I feel that probably this March, the payments, the way trajectory has been till 20th March has been positive. Early days to really say that what is going to happen in next 5 days. But I do believe that the cash conservation mode will be key, because people would like to really conserve cash for food, for medical supplies, and for essentials. But certainly, post this March, and when we enter into the next fortnight of lockout, I think that's really when the real cash crunch will begin to play out. And this really is the need of the hour, that the entire machinery comes around and rallies around the sector, especially the MSEs.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks so much then for joining us and giving us sort of a ground report of sorts, Mr. Jaiswal, of what exactly is happening, what have you been facing, especially from MSMEs and SMEs.